This week's Sunday tutorial, we put the oven door onto our stove. Stay tuned and see how easy this is to do. Alright, so we're starting the door for our stove 2 5/8 inches wide by 1.5 inches tall. And I do recommend that you try it to make sure it's going to fit. You do want to have some space at the top. That's fine because that'll give us enough room that it can open. But you want it pretty close on the sides. Then we're going to go in, I'm going to go on the side I haven't drawn on, go in 1/2 inch, and I like to do this with pencil and then cut it freehand against the lines. Going in 1/2 inch from each side. And this is all going to be covered, so it doesn't matter if you have pencil lines on it, that's fine. What we're doing is we're prepping for our window. You can make your window bigger if you want, but I wanted to make mine kind of small so that it didn't take up too much space and I had room to glue my hinge and things. So I have this way up and I'm working on multiple projects. So I start at the corner. And I don't go quite to the corner the other way. Then I turn it around. I start at the corner on the other end and cut towards the line I just cut. And I work on one side at a time. You want to stay on that line because you want it to be straight. And it's okay if it doesn't, it's not going to pop out until we turn it over and kind of release it. Neaten up all your cuts. Get that out. And if you've got any areas that are kind of wonky, get rid of those now, kind of trim it up. If you need to, get an emery board and kind of clean those lines up, but I think that'll be fine. Now we need a 1/4 inch wide strip of cardstock. It can be just a little shy of a 1/4 inch of the same, whatever color you're making your stove. My appliances that I'm making for my kitchen are all white. And approximately the width of the cardstock. Now, parchment paper. I know I've got it here. There it is. This protects my work surface so I don't have glue, as much glue all over everything. Now, let's see if I should have had this upside down. I forgot to turn it upside down earlier. I came in and turned on the heater in here to make it not quite so cold. Alright, so we're going to go around this opening. Hopefully you're seeing that. Just kind of putting a line of glue in there. It can be a little messy. That's okay. And make sure, if, like my paper has a fairly smooth side and a rough side. I'm putting the rough side towards the foam core. Bend that up and just kind of follow that opening with this and use something to kind of poke it into the corners of your window opening. It's okay if it doesn't, if it's a little deeper than, than your foam core, because we can bend it over later. And I have a little gap in that corner, but that's okay. Alright, try and get that nice and straight. And this piece is just to cover that exposed foam on the inside of the foam core. So I'm going to let this glue dry enough that it doesn't move around, and when that happens, then I'll come back and we can put the cover on. Alright, so this glue is now dry enough that I can go ahead and work with it. And the next step is not going to be really, going to move it very much. So I have another piece of cardstock. This one is about 2.5 by about 3 3/4. I've got about a 1/2 inch overhang on each edge, in other words. So for this, we can use our glue stick, because we're just going to get this in place so we can fold it around our door and get it placed where we want it, wrapped around. This is covering the front and then the edges. And if you want to, you can go ahead and take a knife and just kind of cut this off at the edge. I think my glue needs to dry just a bit more before I do that, but off camera I'll probably get that done. And when this glue that I just put on the glue stick dries, I'll be back and we can go on to the next step. Alright, now our glue is pretty dry, so the next thing we're going to do is, first I want to do some creasing here on the corners. I want to get a crease coming out from each corner so I can kind of see where those are. And now I'm going to cut as close as I can to those creases, which, if I could get my head where I normally would have it, would be a little closer to the crease, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And then we're going to cut corners off. We want to reduce as much bulk as we can, but we want to cover that corner. And this is the way I find makes the neatest covering on that corner. Now, inside of here, you're going to cut a V at each end. And then connect those two V's, because we're going to make the paper fold up. And I tried on scraps of foam core, both doing this before and after doing that center piece that we did last step, and I found that this worked the best. Alright, now get my glue out, get my paper back down. Oops, knocking things over. And we're going to run some glue on those areas. And I like to use a tool. You could use a toothpick, you could use a skewer, whatever you've got. Those up. And now you've got a nice finished edge to your window opening. Now, I need to get this area, this area. Get the ends done. Now, fold up and fold these around. See, those pieces now are covering that corner. A little more glue here. Make sure it's all tucked in. And what I do is I set something on this. Like I'm going to use, I've got a Mod Podge bottle over here. I'm going to set on top of this. You want something that won't stick to it. And these edges inside are all going to be covered later. So it's okay if it's a little messy. You want to get it as flat as you can and just set something on there and let that glue dry. When that glue is dry, I'll be back and we'll go on to the next step. Alright, so our glue is dry enough that I can move on. So I've cut a piece of ribbon, and this is a piece of 7/8 inch ribbon. I just cut it narrow or long enough so that it would fit inside the door. This is our hinge. I thought about what type of hinge to use on this. I decided a ribbon hinge would be easiest for this type of door. So we're going to put this here. Use my ball stylus so I don't get glue all over my fingers. And this is going to be sandwiched in between this layer and a layer of gray cardstock that will match the inside of our oven. Then I've cut a piece of plastic packaging. And this is just big enough that it covers our opening. Let's see if I can get that glue off of there. I'm going to put a couple of drops of super glue here. I think my super glue is almost empty. Which is kind of sad. Alright, and then we're just going to slide this on top. And once again, I'm going to put my Mod Podge bottle on top of that to weight it down. When that glue gets dry, I'll come back and we'll go to the next step. Alright, so our glue is now ready, dry enough that we can move on. So what I did off camera, I cut a piece of the same gray cardstock that I lined the inside of the oven with. And this is cut at 2.5 by 1 3/8. And then I just cut the rectangle in the middle. I cut in a 1/2 inch, and then I cut just like about a 1/16 of an inch more off. So the opening is about, it's just a little bit bigger than the opening on the front. And I checked it to make sure that when I have this turned this way, I can't see the gray. And that's what we want. So this needs to be glued on here. And since I don't want to take a chance on glue stick not sticking permanently, and I don't want a liquid glue, so I want to get my parchment paper down. I have the same wallpaper border paste that I've been using for quite a while here. I've used it on a lot of projects lately. And I'm just spreading a very thin layer of this on here. And we want it to be very thin because we don't want it to come out onto our plastic window if we can avoid it. There. Now, I'm going to, oops, it's not quite straight. Oops, make sure it's straight. And I'm going to set the Mod Podge container on it again. And then when I get the camera turned off, I'm going to put my lamp on so that that can help to dry the glue. And when this is dry, I'll be back and we can put it onto our stove. Alright, so the glue, now make sure that especially this part of the glue is dry. Not only all of this, but this part. So now test fit, make sure this all fits in. And it does. So I am going to put glue on the far end of that. And I need something to spread my glue with. Don't get it too close to the oven door. Put it mainly on the edge of your ribbon. Then, making sure your door is centered, we are going to use a couple of pins temporarily. We are going to cover that with another piece of gray paper. Now, make sure your door opens and make sure it will shut. It will close. And if that's the case, then let this dry completely. But these pins, they're temporary. They're just going to hold this until the glue dries. And once we get everything glued in and we get the top on the stove, it will hold this door down where it goes. It's okay if it kind of lifts up now. Actually, I'm going to cut. It might be a good idea. Take a piece of parchment paper, put in there. And I'm actually going to put that there. So this glue needs to dry, and then I'll be back. Alright, so this is dried overnight. I took my pins out. You can see our door will open better as this gets stretched. It will open up more. And when we get the stovetop on, it will hold the door down where it goes. But now we need to cover that up. So I cut out a piece of the same paper I lined the oven with, and I cut it just a tiny bit smaller than the inside of my oven. I think it's just under 2 3/4 by just under 1 3/4, I think. Measure and just cut it until it fits really tightly into your oven with about 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch smaller than that base. Now, off camera, I'm putting some of our wallpaper paste on this. You could use glue stick if you want to, whatever glue you want to use for this. The trickiest part is we don't want to get glue on the inside of our oven door. So I'm going to try and get this lined up, slide it in from up above, line it up with the edge of the front edge of the oven. And now this needs to dry, and then that's as far as we're going to get this week. And I will explain in the blog post why this video went up so late this week, and along with all our dimensions, all the cutting instructions, cutting sizes, as well as an explanation for why we're so late this week will be in the blog post. So be sure and check that out. If you haven't joined the Facebook group, I encourage you to do that, because I gave the Facebook group a heads up yesterday that this video was going up late, and they already know why. And if you want to help make this channel better, be sure and check out the link to my Patreon page. For as little as $1 a month, you can help the channel grow a lot, and it would be really appreciated. And you'd get your name at the end of the videos like these nice folks. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.